what makes this television different from any other in the world? This button. It brings you a home video game built in, a Magnavox exclusive. One touch and it's Magnavox Color TV with a color picture of astonishing clarity. Touch again, and it's Odyssey, America's favorite home video game.
It is, as with any attempt to nail down a history, a question of how far back one goes. Is the origin of the video game, a term that's only been in existence for over 50 years, found at 5:29 a.m. on July 17, 1945, when the first atomic bomb detonated a technological arms race? Certainly the mainframe computers university students modified in the 1950s to create rudimentary shooting games owe their existence to the missile defense systems in the late 1940s. Neither could video games exist without the television screen, that indispensable window into their fabricated worlds. This artistic medium exists thanks to a perfect storm of technological advancement, the drive of businessmen and women to devise new ways of creating wealth, and human beings' hardwired, inescapable desire to play.
Home video games. The only space invaders. The only asteroids. The only Pac-Man. The only missile command. And soon, the only Defender. And the only way you can play any of them is on a home video system.
In this way, the story of the video game is the story of humankind. Their existence marks the pinnacle of achievement in fulfilling our collective drive to play, one that has propelled humanity forward since life began.
Fire and jump buttons, even arcade sounds.
One can certainly appreciate and praise how video games help to give birth to trends, popularize them, sprouted genres, or busted them open, and laid down the blueprint for the future, or at least began its construction.
Action. Racing. Fighting. Sports. No matter where you want to go, the possibilities are endless.
It goes on forever.
With Nintendo 64.
Video games, despite what their publishers might want us to believe as they promote the next big thing, and the next again, offer timeless and unforgettable experiences. Popular aesthetics may shift with a pod of technological advance, but the underpinning systems often remain as fresh as the day they were coded. The appeal of their quiddity remains undiminished by time.
And you can play them only on the Nintendo Entertainment System.
The video game console. That familiar electronic device, whichever one it may be, outputs a video signal or image to display a video game that could typically be played with a game controller. These may be home consoles, which are generally placed in a permanent location connected to a television set or any other display devices and controlled with a separate game controller, or handheld consoles, which include their own display unit and controller functions built into it and can be played anywhere. Hybrid consoles combine elements of both home and handheld consoles. Simplicity is achieved in part through the use of game cartridges or other simplified methods of distribution, easing the effort of launching a game. More recent consoles have shown further confluence with home computers, making it easy for developers to release games on multiple platforms. Furthermore, modern consoles can serve as replacements for media players, with capabilities to play films and music from optical media or streaming media services. To keep track of game age and financial success, video game consoles are usually sold on a 5 to 7 year cycle called a generation, with consoles made with similar technological capabilities or made around the same time period grouped into one generation. The current generation of video games, as of the recording of this video and television airing, is 9th generation, which began in 2020. The primary consoles for this generation are the Xbox Series X and Series S, the PlayStation 5, the Nintendo Switch, and the Steam Deck. The video game industry has developed a razor and blades model in which manufacturers often sell consoles at low prices, sometimes at a loss, while primarily making a profit from the licensing fees for each game sold. Planned obsolescence then draws consumers into buying the next console generation.
Atari 2600 is priced incredibly low.
That's what I want.
The Atari 2600.
While numerous manufacturers have come and gone in the history of the console market, there have always been 2 or 3 dominant leaders in the market, with the current one being led by Sony with their PlayStation brand, Microsoft with their Xbox brand, and Nintendo, which currently produces the Switch console. Previous console developers included Sega, Atari, Coleco, Mattel, Nippon Electric Company, SNK, Fujitsu, and 3DO, just to name a few. But none of these successes sprouted into the world overnight. The history of the video game console, both home and handheld, began in the 1970s. The first console that played games on a television set was the 1972 Magnavox Odyssey.
To create a closed-circuit electronic playground, Odyssey gives you all the exciting action of hockey and 11 other challenging play and learning games for the entire family. Odyssey, a new dimension for your television, now at your
The Magnavox Odyssey, the first commercial home video game console. Its Kubrick-esque logo and smooth curved white and black casing, like the dashboard of a newly born space shuttle, was pure science fiction, a far cry from the mythological poem from which it borrowed its name. The hardware was designed by a small team led by Ralph H. Baer at Sanders Associates, while Magnavox completed development and released it in the United States in September of 1972 and overseas the following year. The Odyssey consists of a white, black, and brown box that connects to a television set and two rectangular controllers attached by wires. It is capable of displaying 3 square dots and 1 line of varying height on the screen in monochromatic black and white, with differing behavior for the dots depending on the game played.
Press the special tennis game overlay into position on the television screen, and you're ready to begin an exciting, fast-paced tennis game.
Contrasting with the console's electronic aspect, players place plastic overlays on the screen to display additional visual elements for each game, and 1 or 2 players for each game control their dots with the knobs and buttons on the controller by the rules given for the game. The console cannot generate audio or track scores. The Odyssey console came packaged with dice, paper money, and other board game paraphernalia to accompany the games, while a peripheral controller, the first video game light gun, was sold separately. The idea of a video game console was conceived by Bayer in August of 1966. For the next 3 years, he, along with Bill Harrison and Bill Rutch, created 7 successive prototype consoles.
Here's my partner Bill, and we're going to play ping pong for you in a minute, but before we do, I'd like to show you the controls that we're using, which are part of the plug-in module, the ping pong plug-in module, gaming plug-in module of the all-purpose box we talked about earlier. There is a horizontal knob here, as you can see, which, when I twiddle it, moves my paddle from left to right. There's a vertical control, which moves my paddle up and down. Finally, there's an English knob, which allows me to put curves on the ball, control the vertical position of the ball as it leaves my paddle. Whenever I intercept the ball, if I don't miss it, and bat it back at my opponent, I have control over the ball's vertical position, and that's what the English knob is for. And watch me fake him out in a minute.
The 7th, known as the Brown Box, was shown to several manufacturers before Magnavox agreed to produce it in January of 1971. After releasing the console through their dealerships, Magnavox sold 69,000 units in its first calendar year and 350,000 by the time the console was discontinued in 1975. The console spawned the Odyssey series of dedicated consoles as well as the 1978 Magnavox Odyssey 2. One of the 28 games made for the system, a ping pong game, was an inspiration for Atari's successful 1972 Pong arcade game, in turn driving sales of the Odyssey. Patents by Bayer and the other developers for the system and the games, including what was termed by a judge as the pioneering patent of the video game art, formed the basis of a series of lawsuits spanning 20 years, earning Sanders and Magnavox over $100 million.
12 different and exciting games come with your Odyssey, each following the same basic play procedures. In addition to Odyssey table tennis, other sport games include hockey, football, and ski.
The release of the Odyssey marked the beginning of the first generation of video game consoles and was the early part of the rise of the commercial video game industry.
Family, there's cat and mouse. Haunted House, and Simon Says. Rounding out your Odyssey game series are such challengers as Submarine, Roulette, Analogic, and Geography.
But what of the actual console? The Odyssey consists of a black, white, and brown oblong box connected by wires to two rectangular controllers. The console connects to the television set through an included switch box, which allows the player to switch the television input between the Odyssey and the regular television input cable, and presents itself like a television channel or channel 3 or 4, which thereafter became the standard for video game consoles.
Odyssey can be attached to any brand television receiver with a screen size of 18 to 25 inches, either black and white or color. And an ordinary screwdriver is the only tool needed to attach this Odyssey antenna game switch to the antenna terminals on the back of the television set. Once the antenna game switch is attached, you can select the TV position for regular television viewing, or the game position for playing your favorite Odyssey game. Odyssey is played through an unused VHF channel of your television set and operates on 6 common-size C-cell batteries which come packed with the unit. Simply connect the game cord to the antenna game switch on the back of the set and to the master control unit. And plug the player control unit cords into their respective sockets on the master unit.
The controllers, designed to be used on a flat surface, contain one button marked Reset on the top of the controller and 3 knobs, one on the right side of it and 2 on the left with one extending from the other. The Reset button resets individual elements depending on the game, such as making the player's dot visible after it's been turned off. The system could be powered by 6 C batteries, which were included, and an optional AC power supply that was sold separately. The Odyssey lacks sound capability and can only display monochromatic white shapes on a blank black screen.
While people who want television to do their thing entertain themselves with Odyssey, the electronic game of the future, and the family's best foul-weather friend.
Internally, the Odyssey architecture is composed of digital computing parts. The circuitry is implemented in diode transistor logic using discrete transistors and diodes. The games themselves do not use ROM cartridges like later consoles would, but instead use game cards composed of printed circuit boards that plug into the console. These cards modify the internal circuitry like a set of switches or jumpers, causing the Odyssey to display different components and react to inputs differently. Multiple games use the same cards with different instructions given to the player to change the style of the game. Because of the primitive technology at the time, the Odyssey is capable of only displaying 3 square dots and a vertical line on the screen. 2 of the dots are controlled by the 2 players, and the third one is by the system itself. The main console has 2 dials on the back, one of which moves the vertical line across the screen, and the other which adjusts the speed of the computer-controlled dot. Different games direct the player to adjust the dials to different positions, such as changing the center line of a tennis game into the sidewall of a handball game.
And plug the player control unit cords into their respective sockets on the master unit. And your Odyssey is ready to begin entertaining your family. Each Odyssey game uses one of these special game cards, which plug into a slot at the front of the master control unit. The game cards activate lights on your television screen that bounce, float, or extinguish on contact, depending upon the particular game you've chosen to play. For example, to play Odyssey Tennis, you insert game card number 3 into the master unit. This activates 3 lights, 2 representing the players and 1 representing the ball. Press the special tennis game overlay into position on the television screen, and you're ready to begin an exciting, fast-paced tennis game.
The games include plastic overlays that stick to the television screen via static cling to create visuals. Games that use the same game card have different overlays, which can change a game with the same controls from, for example, a mountain ski path to a movement-based Simon Says game. In addition to the overlays, the Odyssey also came packed with dice, poker chips, score sheets, play money, and card decks.
The horizontal knob on the left side of each player control unit allows you to move your player light in a left to right or right to left direction. The vertical knob on the right side of each player control unit lets you move your player light in an up and down direction. And the reset buttons on top of each player control unit bring the ball back into play should it happen to go off the court. After you've learned the basics of the game, you can increase the challenge of Odyssey Tennis by increasing or decreasing the speed of the tennis ball with a special speed control on the back of the master unit. And when you want to razzle-dazzle your opponent into submission, a special English control, which fits inside the horizontal knob, will make that tennis ball do everything but stand up and talk.
One peripheral controller was actually released for the Odyssey, which is the first video game light gun. A light gun is a pointing device for computers and a control device for arcade and video games, typically shaped to resemble a pistol, sometimes a rifle.
Each Odyssey game comes complete with all equipment necessary for play, whether it's one of the 12 standard games or one of several optional games, which include a special shooting gallery, complete with gun and 4 target overlays. Depending on your hunting skills, you can choose between sitting or moving targets.
Named the electronic rifle for the Magnavox Odyssey, the rifle-shaped device registered a hit when pointed at a light source such as a dot on the television screen. 4 shooting-based games were included with the light gun. The light guns were designed and manufactured by Nintendo, which is why it says made in Japan right on the gun, based on their 1970 beam gun toy. A total of 28 games distributed on 11 different game cards were released for the Magnavox Odyssey. 13 games were included with the console, a set of 12 in America and a different set of 10 in other countries, with 6 others available for purchase either individually or in a bundle. The additional games primarily used the same game cards with different screen overlays and instructions. Another game, Percepts, was available for free to players that sent in a survey card. A light gun accessory, Shooting Gallery, was available for purchase and included 4 games on 2 cards that used the rifle. A final 4 games were released for sale in 1973. The console does not enforce game rules, nor does it keep track of scores for the games. That is left up to the players.
Also available as an option is this special organizer case with separate compartments designed to hold all games and equipment.
Magnavox began advertising the Odyssey in mid-September 1972, including a special appearance on the game show What's My Line on October 16, 1972.
Your television to create a totally new play and learning experience. The electronic device is battery powered, and the heart of the unit is the master control unit, which you see poised here. The master control unit, as I say, is battery powered, and by inserting a printed circuit game card, you can create the 2 figures and the ball that we see on this particular game.
This is the show them that, Boss.
By pulling this out,
to it.
You have ceased sending your signal to your TV set. By reinserting this in the slot, you recreate on the screen then the necessary players to play the game.
Now, how many games can you play?
Well, you can play a number of different games with the product itself. There are 12 games that come with it. The games fall into 3 distinct categories. I have the product box here. The categories of games that we have are sports, family and adult, and educational type games. Each of the games, as the tennis game that you see on the TV, require a Mylar overlay like these. This one is the Haunted House overlay, a Simon Says overlay, which is in the educational area for the preschoolers. In addition, for each of the games, you're required game boards, decks of cards that you see here for Simon Says, Haunted House, the States game, chips for the roulette game, and then the other 6 or 5 others, including the one in the device.
There's a football game, too, isn't there?
Yes, it's a very, very interesting one and very detailed, and I think people will have a great deal of fun playing
Now,
it.
how can you use it? Can you use it on any television set at all?
Yes, Larry. It works on any TV, primarily 18 inches through 25 inches. That's by design of the overlays that we have for the product right now, but certainly it'll work on any TV.
Now, how much does that cost?
It will retail for just under $100.
And where can you get it?
Exclusively at the Magnavox outlets.
It's really marvelous. It's the most extraordinary. Now, how do you tune it in? I mean, do you have to have can you, like, if you're on any channel, can you play it?
No. Once you're ready to set this up, you connect the master control unit to the antenna terminals on the back of your television set and tune to either channel 3 or channel 4, whichever's not in use in your area. and you simply turn your TV on and tune it in just as you would a normal program.
Boy, I don't know about anybody else, but I really want one. Thanks for being with us on What's My Use.
As the term video game was not yet in use, the company described the console as the new electronic game of the future and closed-circuit electronic playground. Magnavox initially ordered 50,000 units, but before release increased its production capabilities and built a larger inventory, as market testing found an enthusiastic response to the console. The Odyssey was sold only through Magnavox dealers who handled their own advertising in their local markets. The company had hoped that as the video game console was the first such product, consumers would visit its stores specifically for it. Although there was continued customer demand for the console, Magnavox discontinued the production of the Odyssey in the fall of 1975. While it did show the potential of video game consoles and was an early part in the rise of the commercial video game industry, the Odyssey is not generally considered a major commercial success. Magnavox produced no more games for the console after 1973 and rejected proposals for different versions of the console or accessories.
Odyssey can be many things to your family. Fun, excitement, entertainment, challenge, and education. Why not take one home with you today? It's available only from the Magnavox salesman in the store. Odyssey, the electronic game of the future that lets you do your own thing on television, and only from Magnavox.
The very first commercial video game console was born, the Magnavox Odyssey. Designed by a small team at Xander's Associates and Magnavox, the Odyssey was an innovative piece of technology at the time. While nowhere near as high-functioning and appealing as the modern-day consoles out there today, the Magnavox Odyssey would represent true analog technology for its age, and it all started with one unique prototype. In 1967, Ralph H. Baer and some colleagues at Xander's Associates Incorporated created a prototype for the first video game console ever made. The idea to license the technology for commercial profit meant that Bayer had to ensure that the games created for it had to be fun, otherwise investors and consumers wouldn't be interested in it. Bayer was quoted as saying, "The minute we played ping pong, we knew we had a product. Before that, we weren't too sure." But where does the term brown box come from, and how did they come up with the name? In order to answer that question, we're going to have to backtrack a bit. A unit created before the brown box name was capable of playing some of the first video games programmed for it. A machine called Pump Unit, originally titled TV Game Number 2, featured a variety of elements that you would see in the standard video game console, although not as advanced. It was created in 1967, and it allowed two players to compete against each other in a variety of different games. These included chase games, a target shooting game, and some games that required the use of the system's wooden handle, which was attached to the unit's lower right corner. The handle was moved up and down, kind of like a pump, in the course of certain games. It was thanks to this unusual gameplay at the time that the TV Game Number 2 was renamed to the Pump Unit. The demonstration for the Pump Unit was held on June 15, 1967, and was presented to Xander's senior management by Bayer and his team. It was an immediate success, and the team now had to turn this technology into a commercially viable product. This is where we get to the origin of the name of the brown box. The Pump Unit became far better known by that nickname, the brown box. The name comes from the brown wood grain self-adhesive vinyl to make the prototype look more attractive to potential investors. Although only a prototype, the brown box was no stranger to video gaming elements, particularly the look and function of consoles. It consisted of basic features that many video game consoles still have to this day.
But before we do, I'd like to show you the controls that we're using, which are part of the plug-in module, the ping pong plug-in module, gaming plug-in module of the all-purpose box we talked about earlier. There is a horizontal knob here, as you can see, which, when I twiddle it, moves my paddle from left to right. There's a vertical control, which moves my paddle
while a few clone systems were produced in limited quantities, as well as multiple dedicated systems, which generally focused on ping-pong game variants, were created by several companies. No other home video game consoles capable of playing separately produced games were released until the 1976 Fairchild Semiconductor Channel F. Due to his work on the Odyssey, Bayer has been referred to as the father of video games. In 2004, Ralph Bayer was awarded the National Medal of Technology for his groundbreaking and pioneering creation, development, and commercialization of interactive video games, which spawned related uses, applications, and mega industries in both the entertainment and education realms.